Hey guys, it's Miss Finian, flip video 4 for World War I, and this is our learning target sheet. We're still looking at these two essential questions, and learning targets 3.4 and 3.6. We will get a little bit of 3.5 in there, but we've kind of already discussed that one. And then 3.7 we'll touch on as well, so go ahead and put that one. Alright, so this is our last World War I PowerPoint. So yay! Alright, so we've already talked about why America joins the war, and now we're going to talk about America actually joining the war, 1917. So how did the U.S. joining affect those already fighting? For the Allied powers, they were excited. They thought, the U.S. has joined, all those extra soldiers, we can't lose now. It gave them a morale boost. For the Central powers, they kind of freaked out a little bit. The U.S. has joined, and they have all these extra resources. We're surely going to lose now. It did not help morale for the Central Powers. And the Central Powers weren't necessarily losing. At this time, too, it's important to note that Russia had already left the war because of the Russian Revolution and had formed a communist government. So while they were working on their communist government, they withdrew from the war. So the Allied powers had already lost Russia, but gained America. Okay, so for the learning target that talks about major turning points, these are some of the major things that happen. The first thing is Russia, like I said, leaves the war. Due to turmoil, they were not prepared. They were so unprepared, they sent their czar in to fight, and then they had to do a temporary government. So the government was overthrown. They set up a temporary government, and they ended up having to leave the war so that they could deal with that. Other things are, this is going to help the Germans focus just on the Western Front instead of the Western and the Eastern Front. So this is when America comes in. The American Expeditionary Force, or the AEF, they land in France. And it's important to note that America wanted to help at this point because we felt like we owed the French. The French helped with the American Revolution. And some people thought we should just join the war just to help France. So when we do arrive, our General John J. Pershing, who is the commander of the American Expeditionary Force, lands with the Americans, and basically the French and the British say they want to integrate the soldiers, so all Americans would integrate with the British and the French. However, General John Pershing decided that that was not a good idea, that Americans were going to fight with Americans under American command. They did not want them to kind of mix with the other armies. They wanted them to follow American orders. The only army that they let was African Americans. They let them fight with the French and the British. And kind of point out this time, America's still in Jim Crow laws at this time. So segregation is still wildly rapid, and racism is still occurring in America. So the Germans launch their last offensive, and then it becomes the Germans' their last defensive, which is the Argonne Forest. And so what happens here is the American troops basically drive back the German forces and into the Argonne Forest. So General Pershing assembled about 600,000 American troops, 40,000 tons of supplies, and about 4,000 artillery pieces. And this is one of the most massive attacks in American history. So it starts on September 26, 1918, and the Germans slowly fall back due to the advancing troops, Allied troops. And the Germans get lots of heavy casualties, but by November, the Americans finally shattered German defenses. And all across the Western Front, then Germans start retreating. And this is kind of marks sort of the end of the war. Okay, so how do they prepare for war? First of all, they go through the Selective Service Act, which is the Conscription Act. And so this is the beginning of the military draft that was started. And I think we touched on this last class. So 3 million draftees serve in World War I, and 300,000 of those are going to be African Americans. And they serve in segregated units. So if you remember from our trip from Stones River, Civil War had African Americans and whites and blacks. They were buried in the same cemetery. But by World War I, we're in segregation again. And then the other thing is that the ships, the way they traveled, the way Americans kind of figured out how to travel against these U-boats is to travel in convoys. So they travel in groups. That way, if one gets shot down, they could save the survivors. And it was safer that way to travel in groups. Alright, and here's what a ship convoy looks like. So you have these big ships that just travel together. This is an American pilot. And this is one of the African American units. Okay. So the AEF, just a little background on them, sorry. They arrived in France in 1917, and like I said, they were commanded by General John, they called him Blackjack Pershing. They attacked Germans on the Western Front, and this turns the tide in favor of the Allies. What's cool about this is one of the biggest war heroes from World War I is from Tennessee. His name is Sergeant Alvin York. And there that's General John Pershing to the left, and then to the right is Alvin C. York. Okay, so we have right here, the blue is where we push the Germans back to, and so this is the armistice line. This is where we see the fire, like ceased fire. So the red line is where the front was, the Western Front was. So you can see where we pushed them back to. Awesome. Okay, so these two are American heroes, so we want to cover them. Alvin C. York from Tennessee. In the Argonne Forest battle, his platoon was wiped out, and Alvin C. York was raised in Tennessee, and he was taught to shoot by, he shot wild turkeys. So if you think about shooting a turkey, you shoot the turkey from the side because the turkey can't see you from the side. So he got to, first of all, in the battle, 25, his whole platoon was like wiped out. So he took over the machine guns, and then he got a rifle, and he ran around and killed 25 Germans and captured 125. And he did that by coming to the side of their trench, just like he attacks the turkeys. And he got a Medal of Honor from that. So he's like one of the biggest American war heroes, and he's from right here in Tennessee. And there he is, and there's lots of movies about him. And then Eddie Rickenbacker, who used to be a race car driver, he was a pilot. He was in 134 air battles and shot down 26 aircraft. And in one battle, he single-handedly fought 7 German aircraft, and then he was given the Medal of Honor for that. Okay, and there he is. And that is what the Medal of Honor looks like. And that's a video, which we'll watch that in class. Okay, so the war is over. So Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, they surrender to the Allies because they want independence. So they're kind of tired. They're tired of it, so they surrender to the Allies. And once that happens, the German Emperor knows that it's not going to go well, so he steps down. And on November 11th, on the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month of the year, they sign a ceasefire armistice sign, and they're later going to work on a treaty. Okay, so that treaty will be the Treaty of Versailles. But before the Treaty of Versailles, Woodrow Wilson decides to come up with a plan to bring lasting peace. And so he has major points are that countries should not have alliances anymore, that everybody should reduce their military forces so we don't have a buildup of militaries, and then self-determination for nations. And that just means that a nation should be able to decide itself based on who lives there. So if the people are French there, then it should be part of France. If the people are German there, then it should be part of Germany. And then lastly was the League of Nations. And the League of Nations, as I'm sure you learned in U.S. history, was basically just a collaborative effort, an association of nations that helped preserve peace by pledging respect and to protect each other's territory and political independence. All right, so this is here at Versailles, and the Paris Peace Conference. So the thing about this is it's pretty cool that the Allies really, they liked the 14 points by Woodrow Wilson, except they wanted to change some things, and they did not completely 100% agree with Woodrow Wilson. So the other Allies, they want to punish Germany for the suffering that had been inflicted on the French people, because this war, the Western Front, is fought in mainly Belgium and France. So this treaty is signed June 1919. And what happens with it? Okay, so the agreements are not really what President Woodrow Wilson wanted. Now, he got some of his points from the 14 points, but he didn't get them all. So some of them were that Germany had no choice to sign this. They had to risk invasion by all the Allied powers. And I just want to point out here, if you notice that, we have Italy, our little flip-flop, and Russia was not there because Russia's dealing with their own problems. So they were not even invited to this since they left the war early. So Germany is very severely punished. They have to limit their military. So they're going to limit Germany's military. They're going to give all the land back that Germany had conquered in World War I, and then German colonies around the world were taken away. If their colony was in East Asia, then Japan took it away, and if Asia, then in the Middle East, the British took it away, and if it was in Africa, then France took it away. And then they also forced them to pay reparations, and reparations are basically monetary compensation for all the war damage that they had caused on the Allied powers, and they have to pay $33 billion of it. And that's, if you look at these, you can see this is kind of unfair. That Germany had no say. And who has $33 billion? No country has $33 billion just to pay back. An interesting fact is that Germany does pay these back, but they don't finally pay them off until 2012. Alright, so, and that picture is messed up. So we'll pull it up here. So this is basically, you can see Germany lost all their colonies, okay? And so a lot of this is before World War I, a lot of this was given back. So you look, territory lost by Germany to other countries, and then territory lost by Germany to Italy. So the brown is still German land. Okay, so this changes the map of Europe, and Germans accept the war guilt, okay? So this is Europe after World War I. So you see we have all of these green. These are new nations that are created. So beforehand, this was all of these down here with Ottoman Empire. So you have added all of this land. Okay. And so this Treaty of Versailles, they want to create the League of Nations, which is the modern day United Nations. Their goal was to keep peace between the nations. This is the 14th point of Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. And it failed because the U.S. didn't want to get involved, because not all the countries joined, and they also did not want to get involved in other countries. This is America's return back to isolationism. We were isolationists before World War I. We will be isolationists after World War I. And it's kind of silly reason. The reason why it didn't pass is because Woodrow Wilson did not bring any Republicans with him, and he was a Democrat. He didn't bring any Republicans with him to the peace conference, and they felt like their concerns were not addressed, so they did not approve this. So Wilson thought, well, hey, I'll just go to the American people. So he traveled 8,000 miles and made 300 speeches within 3 weeks to get people to vote for this, and he pushed himself so much that he had a stroke. So, and then he ends up dying after that, and they don't ever pass the League of Nations. That's a sad end. Sorry to depress you. So anyways, the treaty is signed, but basically some of these things from the 14 points happen, but a lot of them don't happen. Like I said, League of Nations does not end up happening. Alright, and what are the outcomes of World War I? Basically, economic-wise, there's a wave of strikes due to inflation, because during the war they raised the wages, and it caused prices to inflate, and so when the war's over, they want to lower prices, and that's not going to fly. So it leads to all of these strikes. And then racial unrest, because of the Great Migration with African Americans moving north, you have race riots over African Americans taking jobs in the north from the war. And then the Red Scare, which is the fear of communism, and people being afraid that people were communists or socialists. And specifically, we call this the Palmer Raids, and Palmer was targeting foreign-born people looking for radicals and people who were socialists. He was the United States Attorney General, and so his house was bombed during a radical raid, and so basically he focused his attention on immigrants, and which is going to cause some feelings of nativism, a return to nativism, just like we saw in the Progressive era. So that is it for today, and I will see you guys later.